It was also clear that voter apathy among youth was quite high. This evening, we're exploring youth and political participation. Let's get right to the conversation, and you can join us on social media using the hashtag Decision2020JA. Now, with me in studio are Tijani Christian. He's a chairperson for the Commonwealth Youth Council. Tijani, welcome.
Thank you.
And Stephen Gardner. He's a tutor in the Department of Government at the University of the West Indies Mona campus.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, good. First of all, young people, young gentlemen, did you rush to get enumerated when you turned 18? Was that high on your agenda?
It was not high on my agenda. I think it was the need for an additional identification card, really and truly. But there was no real need to go and pursue getting enumerated for election purposes.
Just for an ID. So what
Just
about
for an ID.
Your interest, before I come to you, your interest in the political process at that age, was it?
At that age, I had aspirations to perhaps become an MP for my constituency, Western Westmoreland. And perhaps even one day to become a prime minister. But at that age, I don't think I had this great underlying political interest going into coming into university.
All right, Tijani, did you get that idea at 18?
Yes, I did. I did because at the end of the day, I think it came back down to the level of exposure that I was involved in terms of activities. I was a cadet, I was involved in student council, I was involved as a prefect in high school. So those kind of things basically built you to talk about being a part of the process. And I guess because of going to Jamaica College, it was a part of the blood.
All right. Our recent polls, I don't know if you've been, I know you've been watching the polls.
Yes.
Every night in prime time news, we have the results of the RGR, Gleaner and Anderson polls. Now, the polls, as you would have known, have been showing that young people favor the ruling JLP over the PMP. What do you think? Do you agree with that? And what do you think caused that?
I think that the Jamaica Labour Party has had some time to get things right. In terms of the amount of time, for example, People's National Party would have been in power from the 18-year stint. So they'd have had some time to figure some things out and get it right. So I believe that is where the great drive to get young people interested in that scope would have come from. So especially changing to a younger leader and so forth, they would have done all of that as a direct ploy to get young people involved.
Mm-hmm. What I would say is that political representation has 3 M's for me. It's the message, the money, and the machinery. Mm-hmm. One of the things that the Jamaica Labour Party has gotten right in their particular year of governance is relating to the message. And the message has come with what I call the swift generation kind of approach. Mm-hmm. It's either coming through Snapchat, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the other T is TikTok. Mm-hmm. So if you can send the message through that way, it means you're appealing to a younger audience. It doesn't mean that mainstream media is not important, but the demographic between 18 to 35,
that's where
they are pulled by short bites, small text, 180 characters. And once you can send your message direct and clear to them, then you're going to put. So I am not surprised that the perception based on the poll is what it is.
But do you think, I just said that short attention span, TikTok and others, is it really pulling out the young persons to actually get enumerated and actually take part in the process, or are they just enjoying it for the moment and then go to something else later?
I will definitely say that it is entertaining, and it does pull the person to want to join the conversation. The challenge is, how do you translate me wanting to retweet versus voting? And I think the reality is that we have a lot of sympathizers to different political parties, but we don't have loyalists. And at the end of the day, it's like a business. When I go out into the market, what I want to do is to build market share so that I have a greater portion of the market. And how do I translate this? I need to ensure I have a loyalty there. The challenge is that we have older set both on the PMP and the JLP that are loyal. It's just that on the PMP side, you have obvious loyalists who are older versus the JLP. The challenge is both parties have to prove to themselves. How do you translate that to them becoming loyal than sympathizers?
But we shouldn't forget the point, though, that despite them not actually turning up to the polls, it's still important for us to be participating and voicing our opinions, which I presume, because I didn't have that opportunity a lot of years ago, to voice my opinion in certain matters. But now we have the spaces to do so. So even if they aren't translating it into actual votes at the polling station, we still have the opportunity to hear from the youth and what they intend to do and where we want to go.
But as it relates to election, I mean, if you're not voting, you could want to voice your opinion all you want. It won't help the
But
party.
at the end of the day, I'm still paying my taxes, you know?
And that's important, Stephen, because what is happening is that it's not that young people are not involved in the decision-making process. Young people are involved in decision-making every single day, whether at consultation, whether we are involved in policy making. The challenge young people is having is getting involved in the representational side of politics. So we are willing to give our technical expertise to sit at the table. But the challenge is when we get to representation. And both sides have their own idiosyncrasies as related to what are the nuances, preventing internal party struggle, internal mechanism, how do you select candidates, and those are some of the things that young people, which are coming on the back end without the necessary economic capital, to really show that I can pull my weight. Yes.
But you're talking about young people involvement in the parties.
Yes.
Do you think just seeing a young person there as your MP or as your minister, is that sufficient to draw you to the poll to say, yes, I want to vote
I
now
think
because
so.
I see a young person?
Yeah, because especially, as I said before, moving to a younger face for the Jamaica Labour Party also would have had some impact. Can do the necessary research to find that out. But it has certainly had some impact. Also, youth are about image. And if they're unable to see their image somewhere, they're not going to want to be involved in it. And that is why, for example, they would have been moving away from traditional media because they can see themselves on Twitter and on Instagram, etc. So if their image is not there, is not being represented, they're going to be disinterested.
I will say that the first thing may be image, but that's the first hurdle. The first hurdle is getting the right look. But then when I looked at the voters list, I took some time to just go through the spread this afternoon. And I looked at youth candidates that I would consider below the age, let's say 35 and below, or 40 and below, relative in politics, what is youth. All right. And when you look at the JLP set up their list, I count 16 persons. And of the 16, I would consider either you're in a comfortable seat, a marginal seat, or you're in what I call a problematic, meaning that it's more than 2,000 or 1,000 based on the history, it's a seat that stays with a particular party. Of the 16 candidates, one is in a comfortable seat. That's a young person. 6 of them are in marginal. And these are persons who I consider have any seat, any count, meaning based on the last
your
election.
Assessment is 16 on the
based on the 2016 general election, how they would have won possibly below 1,000 votes, because they can't swing in either way. And based on those persons who won below 1,000 votes, you have the 16, one is in a comfortable seat, 6 are in marginal, and 9 are in problematic, meaning that based on history, it may go to that particular party. When I swing over to the PMP, they also have 16 young persons, as I would call them, but guess what? 4 are in comfortable, 6 are in marginal, and 6 are in problematic. So I will look at the optics, but then for the informed young person who is involved in the policy making and decision making, start to disaggregate and say, but hold on, it looks good, but something is not working out here. It's not translating. Because if it is that you want me in Garden House, you're going to give me all the possible tools to ensure that I get to including a seat that is worth, that can actually win. Because if you're going to put me against a strong 2,000, 3,000 margin. Come on, let us be real. In a short space of time that we have coronavirus affecting us, you can't go and meet and greet as before. How really do you honestly expect that I'm going to win that seat?
So basically, you're saying they are possibly setting them up to lose?
I will just say that it's a difficult task. It's a difficult task.
And it's been a thing for years, and I think, where they want to see particular people in their seats still. I'm not sure why they would want to set up people, because, you know, in the context of where we are now, and where the political space is and trying to attract youth, we'd want to give them a better chance to represent other youths within the space. Precisely. But it's unfortunate that this is how the two political parties would have set up their campaign.
Tijani, I just want to check something. In your capacity as chairperson for the Commonwealth Youth Council, voter apathy among the youth.
Yes.
Apathy. It's not just a Jamaican thing.
It's not a Jamaican thing, and that is the reality. You know, Trinidad just concluded their elections, and other countries within the Commonwealth are going to be going to the polls as well. And we recognize that it's not a thing in Jamaica. It's overall, because what we forget is that, for example, in the case of Jamaica, we may have different divisions by how we vote in terms of dimension. Here there's a classism issue versus there's a race issue. And so what we find here is that the political philosophy of either party, to be honest to me, is not necessarily cementing. So what we saw in the 70s and 80s about this democratic socialism and capitalism and saying that this either one is the way to go, and it was a tug of war. That's not really what is happening here in Jamaica now. The older set may understand it, but what young people understand is wealth creation. How do I get to ensure that what I see on TV can be translated in my own reality? And so culture has now seeped in. What we see in the north has now have the real effect on the south. When globalization opened up, we did not recognize what would really flood. So not what we're having now is a sociological issue, not a political philosophy, where capitalism has really taken its space. And now we want to have, as we say, live my best life.
All right, cool. Quite a mouthful there. All right. I just said about how does it affect the young person, my life.
Yes.
The parties, well, the GLP said in a couple of days, they'll be putting out their manifesto. The PNP has already put out theirs. Have you seen it as yet? Have either of you looked at it? But before you answer that, does the manifesto even matter to you or to young people in general?
I don't. Well, yes. To be honest, yes. There are some young people who have been asking for these manifestos, and then they'll challenge some of the points on it and ask, how can this go for me, or how does this benefit me? And they look at things such as student loan forgiveness or volunteerism in certain areas and say, okay, I can see myself here, but how does this then give me money?
So the wealth creation argument is definitely
and I think that is an important point for capturing youth. If the political parties are able to sufficiently do that, then they'll have the youth for this election.
And I agree with Stephen. The reality of it is that how do we really translate that thing? And so what is happening here is that young people are coming in there saying, okay, they're willing, but when they look at the manifestos, I know that personalized view, so that communication so far based on what we've seen is not bad. But what you really recognize is that the wealth creation side of the manifesto for the PNP is not yet released. Why? Because that is a big ticket item. Everyone knows that the demography of 18 to 35 want to see, how do I live my best life? And so some things have been appealing, has been working in terms of the renting to buy. Many young people would have moved into Kingston. How do they now own their own? That is a reality. How do I own my own? How do I drive my own car? How do I live the best life and consider that I can finally go on the hill or get that uptown apartment? Those are the real things. And it's not, like I said, it's beyond just a political philosophy. It is now tangible. How do you understand and translate that wealth creation for me? And that is what they want.
We're right up on a break. Very good conversation here so far. Please stay with us. We'll be back in just a minute.
The date is set.
The general elections for the year 2020 is therefore Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020.
Even with the COVID-19 pandemic, TVJ News has every beat covered. Join us for Decision 2020.
This team is ready to rescue Jamaica.
We are going to create the new Jamaica.
Decision 2020. Comprehensive election coverage. Weeknights in primetime news and our special election program. TVJ News, keeping you informed. The date is set.
The general elections for the year 2020 is therefore Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020.
Even with the COVID-19 pandemic, TVJ News has every beat covered. Join us for Decision 2020.
This
Welcome back to Decision 2020. This evening we're looking at youth and politics. Let's pick up the discussion right before the break. We're looking at the manifesto.
Yes.
How important or how relevant is
Yes.
the manifesto to young people to run in?
Definitely. And so one of the things I was saying is that we see so far in the PNP manifesto that you have the rent to own one, which is a critical point. And also with the student loan, if I volunteer, then they actually will take off something off of my, which at the, coming up to the age of 22, when you're thinking about college, those are the real things that are the things that you really
Appeal
advocate
to you,
for.
right.
Those are the things that appeal to you. So far, those messages are clear. But then when I look on youth on the broader set, meaning not just the small percentage that is going to university, but overall young people, because we have an extremely youthful population in Jamaica. It means that when you look at the growth, PIOJ says that our last growth was 0.9%. And of course, we expect that the numbers will be a bit lower because of COVID.
Right.
But when you disaggregate that, when we see that service industry accounts for a lot of what we do in Jamaica, it means that tourism, BPO sector and so forth, which we know have been extremely affected. How do we ensure that those young people who have already been dislocated because of different reasons and based on the slow pickup in tourism, how do we ensure that they have a reality to see, and so that their dreams of owning home doesn't move to 10 years, but still is in the next 10 years? It means our local economy will have to grow in a way that young people can integrate themselves into jobs, maybe not be the dream job in the first year, but it's a job willing that it can give me the income I need to survive.
And then we must also look at not just speaking to the educated youth, because that's only like 5% of the country, if so much. But we must also consider youth in the rural areas who aren't necessarily going to aspire to go to a university or to a vocational institution, and would benefit from some of these things that the PNP, who is the only person that's put out their manifesto so far, would have been saying, such as going to volunteer in certain areas or paying part of your student loan or giving you some monies to get your own home started. We must also look at how we're going to speak to the rural youth. And some of them now are going into things that are beneficial to them, such as agriculture, etc. Can we do something? Can we translate the economy somehow to get them incorporated into the conversation as well, so that we don't exclude them?
So would you consider, or you think it would be a good idea to put that in the manifesto, or would you think it would be better to target them?
It must be in the manifesto, as I
meaning
said.
in order to reach this target group, is it effective there in the manifesto alone, or would each party have to really target them through, as you said, the social media, the Twitter, the TikTok?
Well,
and
they
all
will
that?
definitely have to pull the manifestos apart, and of course in the bite size, and ensure that the message is clear. What we've seen so far from the Jamaica Labour Party is that they've been putting out a lot of things relating to the achievements so far, which I'm guessing that based on the manifesto that would be coming, will have just building on those achievements, which were in many respects good achievements, which have appealed to the young people. And that is the perception which I said would have guided the polls, where we see that they're saying, well, I'm getting more money, this is what is going on, I believe that this could work for me, versus the other way. So I'm expecting that when it does come out, it will be building on a number of those achievements that would have been set out. On the contrary, of course, you being in opposition have to come with a whole new game plan to say that this is how best I will approach it. But the reality is clear that it's going to youth unemployment is going to be a big ticket item.
Do you think the opposition has been doing that, appealing to the young people?
Right now, sure, with their dubs and so forth, sure.
The dubs is the appealing.
It's the appealing thing right now, but I'm not too sure, especially with the leadership and the contest that they would have done for leadership. I'm not sure that would have lent so much to garnering youth to support them, but we'll see on September 3.
And also,
before you go, as you mentioned the dubs, because I really want to. There's been some argument, of course, right across the board, online, on social media and otherwise, about whether these dubs should really, if they're relevant in trying to choose your government, right? But before you comment, I just want to play some of the more recent ones, so we can hear what is happening there.
Sure.
Ain't it good, right? On June, let's miss them can't you. Then at the top, you won't win it. Feel back stronger. Yeah, we da bring it JLP straight to the top.
Yo, Peter Bunting. stunting. Central Manchester, warm to them. Yo, bunting out and stunting. Kyle them tick like dumpling. Comrade gal them jumping.
Inna we own a lane, now we own a game, so no boy can stall we. Hear me no Barbara Hall, yo Treasure Beach. Hear me no Brampton, Fly Green.
Please I go bust them bubble and walk out everybody in a trouble and face a been up, them a struggle, them a cuddle. Lisa make everybody just a grumble and Lisa make Jamaica look good. Southeast and them a boom, boom.
Okay,
Yes.
I hear my producers inside there enjoying that. But as you said, this now appeals to the younger generation.
Yeah.
To what extent now do you think this will actually transfer or convert into
I'm
votes?
not too sure so much, because what they've done is miss the mark. If it were dubs that would have captured some of the achievements that would have been done by these political parties, and sure, maybe would have said, all right, this is what, and it looks pretty and sounds nice. But what they're doing is just, creating a buzz so that we can say, all right, election is happening, so let's go. But I'm not sure they've actually captured the message that they needed to deploy, which is we've done some things.
The point that Steven made, I'll marry it with something and say that yes, not necessarily capturing the message, because a part of politics is that persons vote on one, the leader as well as the candidate, and then the issue. And those are the lines that they actually vote on. And so what you're trying to do is to bring out the personality of the candidates. Also, because you're in a pandemic, the feeling of election is not the same where persons will be up and down on the road. So it is, how do we create the buzz on social media? And so it has been having that effect. And I think some of the times we forget that the popular culture in Jamaica has changed and evolved. That what we saw, this could have been the same version of what we would have been done in the 80s, or what would have been done in the 90s. It's just that the music has evolved. Popular culture is here. And so it's not for us to put it aside and say it has no place in politics. The truth is, it is there also. I mean, as we would say on the road, a man has to eat a food. I mean, a lot of the artists have been out there without jobs. This is actually a way of them earning a living because they've not been at the stage show and entertainment. So, give it to that. However, once it goes below the belt, then we have to say, well, you need to pull back. But the message is what we need. So there's a few of us who were saying that dubs are good, but we need to see the manifesto because we want to see the message, because that is one of the things we want to vote on. But we have to remember, the buzz is a part of Jamaica's culture.
I agree. All right. The pandemic, that is the big thing that's really impacting or changing our politics for this election cycle. Do you think it was called too soon, considering the pandemic? I'll start with you, Steve.
No, I don't think so. The chances are this can worsen or it can get better. We don't know. That's the uncertainty that we faced next year. So I don't think it was called too soon. I think it needed to be called. And then we can attack the issues right after we would have gotten the election out of the way.
Considering where the numbers are going now,
even considering where the numbers are going now, because next year, March, June, wherever,
you don't know where it could be.
We don't know where it could be. It could be even higher. So I think it's fine now.
Herman, the reality is that we are balancing both country and party, and how our constitution is set up is that the prime minister basically is gifted to say when the election will be called. And so if you are a prime minister, you're always going to want to call it in your favor. But when you think the vote is, or the perception is that the things are in your favor. When COVID came in and hit that off, if we call it last year, we would say it's a different dynamic. But after March, things changed. And so when May came in and June, and we saw that things were shifting up, ECJ started to make the allocations being made, they started reshuffling operations instead. It's clear a message is being said that we may be going into an election mode. We need to be prepared. It being called no, it's reality that the PM has actually looked on the ground and realized what we may be facing. And it would be detrimental if you were to lock down an entire parish because of COVID, even though it's a reality. But then how do you deal with persons' individual franchise that they have a right to? So it had to be called, or else you will be a government constantly looking over your shoulder that whatever hard decision that I make can cause me re-election.
I wonder if it's that case. Some persons would say young persons aren't really afraid of COVID. It's more the seniors who are afraid of it. Do you think that plays anything into it, and that young people really don't really see this as a big deal?
Actually, no, I think it's on both sides. I don't think it's necessarily that young people think it's less of a threat than older person think it's less of a threat, because when you go on the road or you go through Half-a-Tree or downtown, it's both old and young. I remember TVJ did an interview on a series going to the market talking to persons about COVID, and the lady literally said, in our Jamaican pattern, Miss, I'm afraid of COVID, you know, because I'm COVID too. So, you know, and this is somebody who, this is their reality, and economic gain is far outweighs COVID.
The amount of elderly people I would have heard say, you know, this is not necessarily a real thing or whatever. I'm not sure. But the thing is, they still also have to be gainfully employed somewhere.
And that is outweighing it.
Right.
That is outweighing everything.
Right. And so they must also be active. So you'll still see them wherever and however. And so regardless of this COVID situation, you'll see everyone still out.
All right, but in light of the threat, because as we look globally and we see what's happening in other countries, initially that would have, I would say, frightened some persons in terms of how prepared or how much they should be ready for COVID. That kind of has dwindled away, even though the figures overseas are still alarming and are alarming here now. But my question to you now is regarding the protocols and the enforcement of these protocols. Do you think enough is being done? What do you think young people would want to see change or done differently in terms of the protocols?
The mere fact of campaigning on nomination day would have said to the youth, these government officials aren't serious. So, because a whole carnival could have still been had. So I don't think the protocols are being adhered to. And I think that is something that the youth are considering, that the government and the opposition might not necessarily be serious about this thing, because a way less crowd could have been brought to nomination day, to, you know, in observance of these protocols. And so I believe that they aren't. And some things need to be looked at and adjusted.
I mean, the reality is that I think the Ministry of Health and Wellness is trying their best to create protocols that not just allow us to move, but will not restrict us too much, but still allow us to live and have a way of being and earn some income. I think they're trying their best at that, and it's from that end, in terms of a technical perspective, I think the protocol is clear. The challenge that the culture
of Jamaica,
the culture, we're a touch, feel, hug kind of thing.
Tangible.
Yeah, we're tangible. We like to touch and feel, and our politics is the same. We want to see the MP walk in the area, touch him and say, yes, sir, all right, Miss Matt. That's it. That is what, because we live, breathe, and we see. We're a culture that likes to see things, we want to touch it and believe that it is there. And so that is the reality that we set in now. You just have to try your best, because it's a sharp change. It's not a change that we got in one day and then we gradually change in 5 years. It happened overnight. And so we must expect that these kind of things are going to happen, because it's a reality of how we live. It doesn't mean that it's right, but it's a teething process. It is what it is.
All right, we're almost out of time already, but the debates are next week. Any particular one you're looking forward to?
The one with the younger set of people, sure.
I'm actually looking
all right, that
forward
one is
to
on the social issues.
Social issues.
That's on Tuesday.
Yes.
So you're looking forward for those?
Looking forward to that. Some of my favorite people are in that debate, so I'll be just watching that.
All I would say is an interesting lineup for all of them.
Yes.
I can see the reason for each one, why it was done.
Most
and
definitely.
Each person was selected, so those who are reading and looking between the lines of what the political landscape is changing and which seats are being challenged and in what kind of climate is happening, I would definitely say I'm looking forward to see every single one.
All right, we are looking forward to them. Yes. We're out of time. I told you it's like a sprint with this program.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching this evening. It's Decision 2020. We'll be back on Monday. So enjoy your weekend, and thanks for watching.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here.
The date is set.
The general elections for the year 2020 is therefore Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020.
Even with the COVID-19 pandemic, TVJ News has every beat covered. Join us for Decision 2020.
This team is ready to rescue Jamaica.
We are going to create the new Jamaica.
Decision 2020. Comprehensive election coverage. Weeknights in primetime news and our special election program. TVJ News, keeping you informed. The date is set.
The general